if I didn't find anyone, I was convinced that I was just gonna do it at home by myself.
There's that too.
Yeah, I was like, I mean, at this point, after going through what we went through, I don't think I would have been able to do it by myself. But yeah, no, I'm very proud of myself and what I was able to accomplish because I did end up having a successful home birth.
Hello and welcome to Healing Trauma Mamas. I'm your host, Madon Wingo. Thank you for joining us as we share in our stories and experiences of healing from childhood traumas and birth traumas. Listen as we discuss our struggles, our failures, our strengths, and our victories, and all those lessons we've learned along the way. Hello, Healing Trauma Mamas. Welcome to another episode of the podcast. I'm very excited today, as I always am. I always have such amazing guests coming on the podcast, and every single time I'm just excited to see what they have to share with the listeners and what we're going to learn from them, where they are in their healing journey. And I hope it blesses everyone else, but it blesses me tremendously to get to hear these amazing stories of these strong women that come on this podcast and are vulnerable and willing to share some of their life story. Harley, do you mind introducing yourself?
Hi, I am Harley. San Angelo, Texas is where I'm at, and I am I work from home as a wedding videographer, but I also am also like a stay-at-home mom as well. So I do all of that, and yeah, that's kind of where I'm at in life.
All right, that's great. Well, we actually get to know each other a little bit outside of, the electronic world, of the internet, where a lot of guests come on the podcast. And so that's really great. You have such a sweet family, and I'm very thankful that I've got to be a little part of a little blip in your journey.
Yeah.
I would love if you want to maybe kind of delve in a little bit, go as far back as you'd like to talk about your journey in life thus far and how it kind of applies to where you are at this moment.
I'm from a split family, so I have a wonderful mom, a wonderful dad. That's all great. But I think, they split whenever I was probably about 5. And a lot of that I don't really remember. So I've struggled with like anxiety and depression for a very long time. And it stems back now that I'm older. I realize that it stems back further than I thought it did originally.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so I was in counseling at one point and they were like, "Well, are there any times in your life that you don't remember?" And that's one of the times in my life that I don't remember. So that must have been something that was like just a really big change for me. And yeah, so come from a split family. My dad remarried pretty quickly after that, and just like parenting styles and stuff didn't really match up. So like my mom and my dad, they never got along. We were always very split growing up, me and my sister. Like we always felt really guilty. Like say we were at a basketball game or something, I would feel super guilty if I didn't go sit with my mom or I didn't go sit with my dad. And so there was just a ton of guilt that always happened there. And that was really hard for me. I think, and I didn't realize it at the time how difficult it was, but I think just living with that much guilt just like carries on into your life. And then I would say in my teenage years, I started to have very like, this is like a counseling session.
Yeah, that's fine. You know how much
I
counseling
don't
I have
really,
done on this podcast? I
just gonna
mean,
kind of
different
lay it
episodes.
all out there.
You go
Like,
for it. We had a Christy from the Perinatal Trauma Center on a while back, and her and I ended up having to do a full deregulating series because I was having a trauma response on the
oh,
episode because
wow,
we were delving into some trauma that I had. And
wow.
yeah, so you go for it. You
Super
talk about
interesting how
whatever
the
you need to
body
talk about.
remembers.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes. And you talk about not having the memories. That's actually a big part of my story as well. I didn't have memories. I had a lot of repressed memories from basically 12 back.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I only had them come back to me somewhat because of different traumas, came out at different times. And I didn't realize they were even memories at first. I thought they were weird dreams that I was having. And
Awesome.
even then, past like 6, like I have like 1, maybe 2 memories. And when I've tried to do EMDR to get a few of those back, actually, they were so bad that I changed my mind. I didn't want to do them.
Oh my
So the
gosh. I
body
can't
protects
even
us. The body does a
say.
really great job of protecting us. However, as we get older and mature and things happen in our life, some of those things will come back up because we've talked about this on the podcast many times before. The body keeps the score. So the body will store these things up. Our conscious doesn't really know about it. And then something, what they call triggers you, right?
Yes.
Something sets you off and you're like, whoa, hold on. What just happened? Why did I respond that way? Or why now am I physically having some type of a response to this situation? And it's
Yeah.
generally because your body is remembering a traumatic issue that you have
Yeah.
or experience, and it's trying to come out.
Yeah, no, I had a therapist, I think last year, the year before, telling me that. And I had no idea that like literally your brain remembers. So like I was having really bad panic attacks and stuff, at that point, and she was like, well, when you're first, or when you keep going back to this one time, when did that happen? And it was right around the same time of year that this whole panic attack situation was happening.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, yeah, your body remembers. Like, so if something might have triggered it, and your body is like, trying to, I don't
It's
know if
trying
it's
to work it out
protecting you.
usually. Usually it's trying to
Yeah, trying to
reconcile and figure out what's happening, what's going on, why is this familiar?
trying to heal it, and then, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a big part of the healing process. But when
Yeah.
we don't understand what's happening, that makes it scary for us. And
Yes.
that triggers anxiety, that triggers real like physical
Mhm.
symptoms. A lot of that physical symptoms from anxiety, are coming from those responses to trauma that is either realized or unrealized.
Yeah. That's so interesting. Now I'm wondering if my first major instance with um I guess I'll just let me finish going on what I was talking about first, and then we can and then I can jump back. But okay, so when I hit my teenage years, I started having really bad like obsessive thoughts and stuff like that. Just really like super paranoid in a way too. So I remember at school we had, and um I want to say this too because I sometimes do feel this way, but basically some of these traumas that you guys have, I'm sure, talked about on the podcast are probably a lot more intense than what mine is. But I do know that everyone handles trauma differently. So I don't know. Anyways,
Everyone's experience is unique.
yeah. So, anyways, I started having these thoughts, and I remember in school we had like sex education, and I remember them uh showing a video on date rape drugs and stuff like that, and how people put drugs in your drinks and all this stuff. So that was one of the first instances where I was very paranoid, and I had no idea that, I just thought something was wrong with me. I mean, I was having full on, and this is full on anxiety at like age 12.
Hmm.
That's not okay. I would literally hide my drinks. I remember taking a soda with a cap on it, taking it to my room, hiding it in a drawer, and I'm at home with my mom and my sister. I thought they were going to drug me
Hmm.
or try to kill me or something. Like I have no idea why. I was just convinced that everyone was gonna try and poison me at that point. Um, so then, a few other instances where I was just like very obsessive thoughts, like very scared all the time. And then I had an instance where I lost some really good friends of mine. Like, not lost, they didn't die or anything, but it felt like that. in a way because they shut me down. I had no friends at that point because we were in a at I guess in school we were probably, I would say, kind of popular. So like them going away from me made everyone else go away from me as well, especially in our friend group. And so that hit me really hard,
Mm.
especially at like 14, 15, where you're just finding yourself. It was just very hard. I tried making other friends. One mom, I was girls and boys when they're teenagers, you're talking about things. Say you were intimate with a guy, like you're gonna text your friend and talk about that. Well, I was doing that with one of my friends, and her mom saw that and was like, "You're not hanging out with her again." So
Mm.
I lost lots of friends just due to weird stuff like that. And so I just really felt alone. And then also, I mentioned earlier that my parents didn't get along very well. Um, and that also included like discipline stuff. So like I would get disciplined at my mom's house, or I mean at my dad's house, and then my mom, wouldn't feel that it was as necessary. And my dad's punishment was always a lot more, like, I would say, intense. It's like it was like full on, like, you know, you're grounded, you're gonna go to your room, you no TV, no phone. And then I'd go to my mom's and I'd get my phone because my mom felt bad for me because I was like literally dying on the inside because I had nothing at that point. I had no friends. I was always getting grounded and stuff for like bad grades or random things like that. And she would give me my phone and I'd go to my dad's and it would be like, "Did you use your phone?" And I was like, "No, I didn't use my phone." And somehow they would get it out of me that I used my phone and I would get grounded for a whole nother week. So I was just like constantly feeling
Mm.
alone. Um, and that plays a lot of part. So then I started going through a phase of I don't know who I am. I'm gonna like I was so self-conscious at that point that I would go back and look at videos of myself before I started feeling the way I was feeling. It's just like a constant state of panic and anxiety that I had for years. And I don't think I realized it until I had my first major panic attack. I would watch videos of myself just to try and remember how I was before I started feeling the way I was feeling. And at this point, no one knew what was going on. Everyone was just kind of like a little like Harley used to be this fun, sweet, outgoing, funny girl. And now she's like really reserved and like shy and not really herself. And I would always try to act like that girl again, and it would come out as like weird or ditzy or something. Like I had a boyfriend even tell me one time that he was embarrassed to be around me because of how I was acting. So I think it's just like a lot during those like formative years that I went through that
Mm-hmm.
caused me so much pain. And then when I did have my first panic attack, it was just kind of like thrown overboard, like it wasn't really a thing. And I just, after that panic attack, I was then terrified of having more panic attacks. So here comes the rest of my journey where I'm just like, every so often, if I get that feeling again or something stems how I felt at one point, whatever, I can start getting these panic attacks again. And they're just like, they are consuming, they're mind consuming. It's really hard because it's like, is this something that you have to deal with forever? And I think it is, but when you're going through it, it just feels like a lifetime. And I just have to like constantly remind myself that things get better and you do have an enjoyable life outside of these things. Um,
And you
but
can heal
yeah,
from it. It takes time, and lots of things happen in our lives that help in that healing process. But I have seen it happen. I'm a firm believer that you can heal from that,
yeah,
but it is part of your process as you're growing and working on healing other aspects of your life as well.
Yeah. And you know, you and I were talking before we started the meeting about, me kind of uh I just had a baby 6 weeks ago, and things are kind of coming back up for me again, and it's trying to decide, oh, is this hormones, or is this, me just having another like little bit of like an episode or whatever you want to call it, a time in my life where I'm gonna have to just like figure out what is causing it and then just try to like move through it
Mm-hmm.
instead of dwelling in it. It's like I
Yeah.
can't really, this is a time of my life when I feel like I need to be like the most happy and whatever. And like right now, it's just like just getting day by day, getting through the day is like
It's a lot.
harder than it should be,
Well, you're
I guess.
sleep deprived, you're nursing, you have a complete change of schedule,
Exactly.
everything is thrown off, hormones are up and down. There's a lot going on in the postpartum period.
Yeah.
Well, so speaking of motherhood, do you want to kind of go into like becoming a mom? How did that all happen and how was that first pregnancy and delivery and all of that?
Okay, yeah. So I have two kids now. I have one, his name is Harlan, and he's my son who's 4. And I just had a little baby girl. Adon was one of my midwives, and she's 6 weeks old. Her name is Essie. And yeah, so with Harlan, I have a little bit of a different type of trauma, nothing to do with my anxiety and that whole trauma side of things, but this is a birth trauma, I would say. For me, especially, um, it was just really hard to I guess bite once it happened. So with Harlan, I had planned the whole time to have a natural birth, but everyone in my family is more like medically minded, as like basically half the whole US. Um,
Yeah.
and so I felt like I just kind of like went with what they advised me to do, just because, I had my beliefs, but and I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna have a natural birth at the hospital. It's gonna be great. Um, so anyways, throughout my whole pregnancy, I saw a nurse practitioner. She was a nurse midwife, and I thought, okay, this is going to be great. She's a midwife. Like, what? That's exactly what I wanted. And no, she is technically, I guess, what people call a midwife,
Mhm.
and basically a doctor. And my pregnancy went really well, but as soon as I went into labor, I was very, very shocked at the pain that came with being in labor, and so it was scary for me. So I went into labor with my son, and I ended up going back and forth from home to the hospital, thinking that I was progressing and stuff like that. And I was, but it was more like, okay, I was at that point, I was like 3 centimeters the last time I had gone to the hospital. So they were like, just don't come back until you can't really talk, basically. And I'm like, okay. So we finally made it back to the hospital around midnight, December 30th or 30. Wait, is it 30th, 31st? I don't really know. Back in 2019, whatever date it was. And I remember I was like a 7. And I was like, you know what? Just give me the epidural. Like, I need that. And so they gave me the epidural. That was super scary. Not because I felt any pain or anything, but it was because I, as soon as they gave it to me, I started to turn white and pale, and my blood pressure dropped, and so they had to take it out and redo it. And then after that, I just felt like I couldn't breathe because they had me laid back, and it was just uncomfortable. I never liked the epidural at all. I know some people love it, and I hated it.
Mhm.
So I then labored like that for till the next morning. So it was midnight when we got there. I remember it was New Year's Eve. So I remember my husband asking for a kiss and I was like in a contraction and I was like, no, that's not happening. And so, anyways, I labored until the next day, and um, they ended up giving me Pitocin in the morning, and they would just come in randomly every so often just to check things, and we'd do some like practice pushes and stuff like that, and then they finally got I was at a 10 or what they thought was a 10, and so they would come in and they would have me push. And I was like, yes, we're gonna have a baby. And then they'd leave. And they're like, okay, we're gonna come have you push again. You've got a lip of cervix in the way. So I had this lip of cervix. They had me try to push past it. They were trying to move it and manipulate it. It wasn't working. And with the epidural, you can't feel anything. Like you just have no idea where you're pushing at all. They only had me trying on my back, so it was just like a whole cascade of things. And then so they were trying to manipulate the cervix, and then I swelled. So I swelled back down to a 6, and then they had me redilate, which took however long, and gave me more Pitocin. And then my son's heart rate starts to drop, and they're like, and I don't know if it was dropping like super significantly, but it was enough for them to be like, well, you've been in labor this long, let's just go ahead and have a C-section. So they called an emergency C-section, and yeah, that was extremely terrifying. Like, I don't think I thought I was gonna die on that table.
Mm-hmm.
It's I don't know. Did you have a C-section with any of
I
yours?
did not. But I've talked to a lot of moms who have, and they have that exact same feeling that they're going to die on the table.
I mean, literally, you're in this stale room. You're shaking like a leaf. I mean, literally, I was bouncing. My arms were flailing on the table, and like you can't feel any of the rest of your body.
Mm.
And just all of this rush of hormones and medicine and all the stuff that they're giving you. I mean, I straight up thought I was gonna die. And they got him out, and he was perfect. And I remember as soon as they got him out, they gave me this medicine to chill me out. And I remember I was like high as a kite. But seeing my baby for the first time made everything fine in that moment. But after that, I think I had a lot of it kind of traumatized me a little bit because I was terrified to get pregnant again.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why I mean, my daughter, she's an accident. I mean, she's not an accident. We weren't planning her, should I say. No child is ever an accident. Like,
Agreed. Just maybe
but
not planned, not very
yeah,
surprised.
she was a definite surprise. And in a good way because it did help me work through a lot of my fear and
How
stuff.
how did you deal with so throughout the pregnancy, how did you deal with this known anxiety that you've already had to be dealing with through your life that you've were working on? Did that come out at all in the pregnancy?
That's actually really good. I'm happy you mentioned that. Yes. I actually struggled really bad. That's another reason why I was scared to get pregnant again. Not only the C-section and that whole situation, but also because when I first got pregnant, at the time so I've always kind of taken since probably I was 17 or 8. I think 17 is when I started taking medication for my anxiety and for the panic attacks. And at that point, I was taking what is similar to like a Xanax, and I was taking that every day. Whenever I would go to work and I would start feeling anxious, I would just take like half a pill and I would start feeling good again, and I could go along and literally just be calm the rest of the day. That was all I needed. It wasn't like, it's not like, like was addicted to it or anything. It was just like something that, calmed me down enough to like just function. And I was also smoking at the time. And so I found out I was pregnant and totally flipped out. Like I full on panic attacks again. Mainly because I had to stop because I stopped taking all my medicine, including
Mm.
my antidepressant that I'm on, and all of that plus not smoking. It was just a shock to my system, and it brought up a lot of my fears and stuff about not like the medicine has always kind of been like a blanket for me.
Hmm.
Um like I know I have that even right now with what I'm dealing with. I know like I usually just have a pill hanging around everywhere I go just because I know it can calm me down if I need it. Um, and I mean, that medicine's like years old now, but I still just take it with me in case I need it. And not being able to have that because I was pregnant. Like you can't take those medicines when you're pregnant. And
Yep.
so just losing that as my blanket was terrifying. And I finally, I don't know if this helped or not, but I had low progesterone. So I remember I was like, everyone knows that, how I get, my family does. And they know that I struggle and stuff. And we were supposed to be going to a graduation in like Denton, I think, Denton area. And I was like, we can try. I told my sister, I was like, we can try to go, but I don't know if like we might have to turn around. Like I might have like a freak out. And so we're driving and I'm like still in this constant state of anxiety, but it's not like full on panic. And I'm just sitting there or well, let me go back. So I had low progesterone and on that trip, I had just gone and picked up the progesterone. You insert it vaginally. And on that trip, I remember just having these good thoughts all of a sudden, and like it's like a switch turned off. And I know sometimes like I can do that myself, but I don't know if it was also a mixture of hormone related stuff too, because I did get the progesterone.
Yeah,
Um,
progesterone can help a lot.
yeah, so I don't know if that also helped, but something triggered in my body and I just all of a sudden was having like decent thoughts and like thoughts that I could hold on to, you know? Like when I don't know if you've ever, I'm sure you have, but like panic attacks, like you're so flighty, you can't hold on to like your thoughts, you can't hold on to them. They're not like concrete or something.
Hmm.
Like you don't feel grounded.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think so I dealt with some really severe anxiety due to a doctor prescribing me the wrong amount of testosterone
Oh my God.
post hysterectomy, and it kind of hit me out of nowhere, and I was like, I've never felt like this before. I mean, and I've had trauma issues before, but not this type of anxiety.
Yeah,
And it would be so like severe. It was awful. It was awful. I was so over medicated on the testosterone. Yeah, they wanted me to be around 100 and I was almost 700.
oh my gosh.
Yeah, and I would ask my husband, like I like at night sometimes it would be so bad, and I would try to go to sleep and I would hold his hand and I was like, please just tell me, like, keep me grounded. And he
Yeah,
would like I would like I would have my eyes closed and I was like, just tell me things in the room, or tell me things that are true, tell me some things that are real. And he would just start telling me, these different things to
wow.
help kind of keep me grounded. So yeah, I know exactly what that feels like.
That's crazy to hear someone explain it like that. Yeah, because that's totally how I feel. Like you just you don't feel like things aren't concrete. You just can't
Mhm.
grasp them. You can't. They're so flighty. You can't just hold on to a thought or anything. So yeah, so that was something that was a huge hurdle for me to pass, and that lasted up until between 8 and 10 weeks. I mean, it was only a couple weeks, but gosh, it felt like a lifetime for me.
Mm.
Um, just because you are having to work so hard throughout the day just to function.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, that past trauma had definitely carried over into both pregnancies because that the C-section and then also those panic attacks in the beginning of my pregnancy with Harlan terrified me to get pregnant again because I didn't want that to happen again.
Mhm.
And I knew I was in a different state in my life whenever I got pregnant, and I knew, like I was happy and all this stuff. And I just tried to focus mainly on, having a healthy pregnancy and like trying to get the outcome that I wanted this time, as far as like the home, having a natural birth and stuff like that.
So did
And
it
so
not phase you that the doctor said that wouldn't be, so they had told you before that that wouldn't be possible, right?
yeah, so after I had Harlan, I went back for like, what is it, like your 6 week checkup, and she is telling me that, I was asking her all these questions about why I had to have the C-section and all this stuff. And all she could say was, well, your pelvis is more oval
Mm-hmm.
rather than round. And so I can't remember. It's called something.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how it's supposed to be shaped, if I'm being honest, but that's the
Well, there's
big
several
one.
different types, different shapes of pelvises.
Well, okay, so mine is more oval then.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, it's great for being skinny, but I mean, if you have a girl, you might could have vaginal, but your pelvis is just too small. And she did, that was totally like, okay, well, I'm gonna try and prove you wrong. I mean, I'm just that kind of person. I'm like, I feel like God makes you made the woman so that she could birth babies. Like, I mean, obviously for other reasons as well, but like you're made to do this. And so, I was never fully convinced that was my destiny, should I say.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sorry, I have a dog. I have,
That's okay.
I have a hungry dog outside that can see me. Um, and so then I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna try going to another doctor in the same air in the same, clinic or whatever. And I'm talking to her about the C-section, if she thinks a VBAC would be possible. And this is like months later. And I'm like asking her about my notes and asking her reasons why I had the C-section and all this stuff. And, you know, I can't remember. I'm assuming she probably did do like a check on me,
Mm-hmm.
but she said, "Oh, after she had told me, oh yeah, you could have a VBAC. Like I don't see what's wrong with that," and blah blah blah. And then she goes and checks me, and she's like, "Oh yeah, no, I don't know if that's gonna be possible," that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just like defeated again, just constantly being told that I'm not going to be able to have a natural birth. And people around you too give off that negative energy too, because they're like, oh my gosh, you had a C-section. Like you're not going to be able to have a natural birth. There's no way, kind of thing. Some people think like once a C-section, always a C-section. And that's just
Mm-hmm.
like not the case.
So then when you got pregnant with Essie,
Uh-huh.
you started looking for providers again, looking for a VBAC.
Yeah, so when I got pregnant, I was very determined that I wanted a true midwife. My husband was not on board with doing a home birth at the time, and funny how things change.
And I guess we
Uh,
should clarify for the listeners who may not know, VBAC means a vaginal birth after cesarean.
so yeah, I immediately was like, okay, let me check out and see what kind of midwives are in the area. I had noticed that there's two girls on my Facebook that I follow. They're really just acquaintances. They're not even friends or anything, but they both use this same birth center. So I was like, okay, well, let's try this out. It's a birth center. It's like 90 miles from where I live, so that's not necessarily ideal, but it would give me the natural birth that I'm looking for, hopefully. And it also gave me comfort that it was like near a hospital. It was like located near a hospital and stuff like that. Gave all my family reassurance that I wasn't, and nothing terrible was going to happen to me and that whole situation.
Mm-hmm.
And so, it was great for the time. So, I was under her care until 34 weeks. Um, and then something just wasn't right. I just didn't feel fully comfortable and stuff like that. And she was just kind of giving me very negative vibes, I guess. Um, on
How had you dealt with your anxiety through this pregnancy?
Okay, so through this pregnancy, in the beginning, I was very nervous, but I kind of dealt with things differently. So this pregnancy, I just trusted my body. Um,
Good.
I knew I was pregnant and I was not going to take a pregnancy test. I was bound and determined I'm not taking a pregnancy test. It first off, it was just going to make it more real for me. And once it was real, like concrete on a pregnancy test, it was going to, I think, trigger some of those anxious feelings.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was just determined. I was like, I'm not taking a pregnancy test. Like, I'm nauseous as all get out. Like, I'm so nauseated. My boobs hurt. Whenever I breastfed my son, I was like, not, it didn't feel the same. Like, something was off. I was like, I'm pregnant. There's no way I'm not. I remember I couldn't eat watermelon with Harlan, and I can't eat watermelon again. And that's my favorite fruit in the summer. So
uh,
I'm pregnant, and nobody believed me. And so finally I gave in, and I never once looked at a pregnancy test. I took a test for my husband and my sister also because she was driving me nuts. So I took a test and I had two in my cabinet, and I took the first one, and my husband comes in and says, um, "You're not pregnant." And I was like, well, "That's not right. Like, I know I am. So do you just need to stop?" So he started treating me the rest of the night like I was not pregnant, and I was feeling terrible for no reason because my nausea and stuff was a lot worse this time around, like super bad.
hmm.
So anyways, then I took another one in the middle of the night with no one knowing because I was like, I'm just gonna take another one because my pee is probably more concentrated at this point, like whatever. So then he wakes up in the morning. He said, "Did you see the test?" And I said, "No." And I said, "But I know it's positive." And he's like, "I'm so sorry. Are you okay?" And I'm like, "I'm fine. I know I'm pregnant." So that was one way I was able to like keep the anxiety low for myself, is to just like accept it more slowly. Like I was able to just kind of like not know for sure, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And that just really gave me a little bit of a buffer in how I was going to, handle my feelings and my anxiety really. And then throughout the pregnancy, it was so good. Like I was the most stable I think I've ever been in my life. Like
Oh, that's wonderful.
I really felt truly amazing. I had maybe like one or two bits of where I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm gonna like have a little bit of a panic attack." But other than that, it was great. Like I'm like, I could definitely be pregnant again just to feel like that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was super interesting to me how this pregnancy differed from my last one, as far as my anxiety goes, and how I dealt with them differently.
Yeah, you were also making some different choices for yourself too. So you had to kind of be very firm in what you believed and what you believed your body could do, and
Mhm.
you were going after that, and that's awesome.
Yeah, I was like taking more control over myself
Mm-hmm.
and the things that I can control at least. So I think that helped a lot. And just kind of just trusting myself a little bit for like the first time in my life.
That's great. What
Um,
an amazing through this process of your growing a human being inside of you.
yeah,
And you are on this growth process of now you're going to be a mom of two, and there's a lot happening through that, but you also get to grow in this as well, and that's pretty
yeah,
amazing, and just trusting your body and knowing what you can do and knowing yourself better.
yeah, yeah. I like it's so fun to like hear other people like kind of say things like what you just said really resonated with me. So I think I love that. It's like it really does help you grow, and I just never really thought about it that way. Like it helping me grow through, you know, like I was able to conquer this anxiety and through this pregnancy and my anxieties towards it from my last pregnancy experience. And that's just going to carry on into my future. And I just, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So you got to the point where you were feeling like maybe you didn't really want to have a birth center birth and you wanted to do something different. And there was just a few little signs that maybe you wanted to choose something else.
Yes. Yeah. So, there was a few things that, do you want me to get like specific on those?
If you want to, that's up to you.
Okay. Yeah, just a few things. I basically the gist of it was just that I felt like I was not going to end up having the birth that I wanted.
Mm.
She was very you could tell I felt like she was a little nervous about VBACs, because I was telling her at one point that I wanted to um stay at home as long as possible, or at that point we were just going to be in a like a Airbnb, laboring. And she was like, no, I want you there early. I need to be able to monitor you and all this stuff. And I was like, well, I know there's like a cascade of hormones when you're laboring, and when you move and leave the your comfort space, that your hormones can shift and you can slow things down and things can stall. And there's all these things. So that was one thing. And then my weight was mentioned a few times. And I'm like, I've never been like a big person. And so to be told that I'm gaining too much weight and to be made like to feel like I needed to watch my weight, like I was coming home and trying not to eat too many carbs. Like
Oh no.
I like literally, I mean, she just made me feel kind of like that.
That's
And
really
I
hard, especially when you've been working on really trusting your body this pregnancy.
No, exactly. And just lots of things were just kind of like little things like that. And I'm like, I don't, something isn't right. And I started feeling that way about 20 weeks pregnant. And I just didn't trust my gut at that point. I was terrified. I don't want to hurt people's feelings. That's another thing. I'm like the most empathetic person. I'm like, I just care too much about what other people think,
Mm.
and was worried about what she would say. And we'd already been paying all this money, and I just thought it was like a no-go. So anyways, at 34 weeks, I was listening to some podcast, before I knew about yours.
Mhm.
And um, but it was a lot of just like birth podcasts though, mainly. And it a lot of them talk about trusting your gut. And there was one that I was listening to, and it really just resonated with me. But she had a similar situation, and she was so happy that she had switched providers, and just trusted herself. And I'm like, oh my gosh, just trust yourself, Harley. You can do this. And so I had actually gotten names from an ultrasound tech of midwives in the area who also send to that ultrasound place.
Mhm.
And one of them was Jennifer's name. And I had never seen her on like whenever I would just Google search or whatever. And as soon as I saw her website, I was like, okay, this lady looks, I like her. I like what's happening on her website. Like, something resonated with me immediately, obviously. Whereas other people's websites, which websites don't, I mean, don't really tell a bunch, but enough for me to be, to feel, like I
Well, yeah, the
should
content
tell.
on the website is important because that gives you a little
Yes,
bit of a window
yes,
into how maybe this person's philosophy of birth is,
exactly.
or, yeah, those type
Well,
of things.
and I had contacted another lady and was going to set up an appointment. And I just knew immediately the first phone call, we weren't going to have the same beliefs and same thoughts on things. So shut that down real fast. And then I just felt defeated until I found Jennifer.
Mm.
And so, yeah, so switching and doing that, and then meeting, once I met you, or once I had the phone call, I felt really confident. And at that point, my husband, he was like, if we can save some money, and which we ended up spending the same amount, but still, because we lost money from the other lady. But um, we he was like, if we could, and then but we're not going to be spending money on an Airbnb, and we're not going to be having to travel and all this stuff. And he was just like, at that point, he was probably kind of tired of hearing me talk about not feeling right about something, and
Mm.
he's like, just fine, I don't care. And he was actually excited when after we got off the phone with y'all.
Aw.
Um, and
Well,
so, yeah, I think
I'm a
just,
firm believer that there is a perfect midwife for everybody.
yeah,
So I'm thankful that we have such a different, range of midwives around, and one person is going to resonate with you and another person, is going to resonate with a different midwife. And I think
yes.
that's the beauty of that. They all practice generally in the same, with the same philosophy, but with a few, different caveats. And the fact that you found somebody that you resonated with and you went after and tried to go find that's
Well,
wonderful.
yeah, and just everyone's personality is so different. And, I think I just kept thinking like we didn't have a connection, me and the other midwife. I wasn't clicking with her on the same level that I wanted to. I really wanted a really holistic experience. And, I kind of wish I would have gone sooner with you guys because I think I would have felt more like I had that experience. But just knowing and following my intuition really has given me a lot of confidence,
Good. It
and
should.
trusting myself. And I think that's going to like lead into my future a lot too.
I just love that there's a lot of people feel kind of trapped when they get that far along in their pregnancy and they're with a provider that they really are seeing things not going the way they want and know in their gut that they need to switch, but they
Mhm.
don't make that decision because it's such a hard decision. Because yes, maybe most likely somebody's not going to like me for this decision. I'm
Yeah,
probably going
yeah,
to lose money. There's probably going to be a lot of different things that are going to happen here. And then I have to find another provider. And what if I don't find a provider that I really do resonate with? And that's a challenging spot there.
it
And
was.
you did it though. And
Yes.
I think that's a great testimony that, stand up for yourself. Look for those little red flags and realize like, hey, no, I am worth going and finding a provider that will see birth the same way I see it, who will be my cheerleader, who will be there to help me facilitate this birth that I know that I can do.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and if I didn't find anyone, I was convinced that I was just gonna do it at home by myself.
There's that too.
Yeah, I was like, I mean, at this point, after going through what we went through, I don't think I would have been able to do it by myself. But yeah, no, I'm very proud of myself and what I was able to accomplish because I did end up having a successful home birth.
Hmm.
It was great. We did have some obstacles to overcome because like the body remembers things.
Yep.
I know that my body was holding on to a lot of tension. And that's something I'll never forget is whenever I was in the final stages and you were talking to me about what I could be holding on to and stuff. And I mentioned that, you know, I've been told I can't do it multiple times. And y'all kind of helped me through that. And, um, that I think after we talked about that is when she eventually started crowning, right?
Yeah, one of the times. I think we talked about it a couple of times.
We
Uh,
might have kind of been days at this point.
well, that's okay. Yeah, because we do get trained a lot and we see a lot of times the body does keep the score. You do hold things in, and especially in a process of birthing a child, you really have to let go. You
Yeah.
really have to trust your body. You have to really go internally and allow the body to go through the process it needs to. You can't have tension. You can't be holding on to fears and anxiety about things that may have happened in the past, whether it was from a previous birth or some other type of trauma. When you hold on to those things, then the birth does not progress the way that we need it to so that you can successfully have this baby naturally.
Yeah.
And I think we just kind of recognized that after a little while and had that conversation And we kind of talked about like, okay, well, what do you want to tell the doctors now? Like they
Yeah,
can't, they don't have control over you. Okay. They said you can't do it. So
yeah,
we're proving them wrong.
I
Let's, let,
know.
let's
And
just tell them where they can go.
yeah, exactly. And I also remember surrendering when I remember my eyes were closed, I think, and Jennifer was standing in the doorway, and I was like, I can't do it. And I don't remember the exact conversation, but I basically remember her saying, okay, well, I mean, we can call an ambulance, but you're gonna have this baby in the ambulance. Like you're too far along. Like this is just it's gonna happen. And I'm like, at that point, I was like, screw it. Okay,
There we
let's just
go.
have the baby.
Mm. Yeah. I think
Uh,
you needed that motivation there to just be like, no, I am doing this.
I did need it. I needed motivation because at that point we had been pushing for a long time, and I was just like I thought I mean, I really thought somebody was just gonna have to come in and cut her out of me.
Mm. But that didn't
That's
happen.
that didn't happen. It was great. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
I think I was able to do, I think I'm gonna, I still think I'm like healing and stuff, but I think comparing the two, uh, it has made me so much more confident in myself and my body, and knowing that um you kind of have a choice in a way.
Mhm.
So
I won't forget the look of shock on your face when you were like, wait, I did it.
I know, I know. I was like, what?
Is there a difference between, this has been a goal, this has been a goal, this is what I'm working towards, this is what I'm working towards, and then you did all that hard work, and then it was kind of shock factor, like, wait, no, I actually did it.
After we were in the bed, I lost it. I was just like, I cannot believe that just happened. Like I mean, we were on, it was on the ground, and then everything just was happening so fast that I didn't have time to register. And then we got in the bed, and I just remember just like bawling my eyes out. It was
Mm-hmm.
really emotional for me.
It was all of us. I don't think any of us had dry eyes because it's such we as midwives, we have the opportunity to get to see mamas realize the strength that they have and the
Yeah.
power that's within them, and to get to see somebody who was told, you can't, you can't, you can't, and to see them step into their power and do it.
Yeah.
It is such a beautiful thing to witness. And it is just, I mean, it's such a wonder to us as midwives that we get to be a part of that, and it's such a blessing.
Yeah.
So tell me what this postpartum period looked like, and maybe kind of how different it was for you, or how you worked through some of the things, or maybe how different it was this time.
Okay. So with Harlan, like I said, after the C-section, well, actually, I don't know if I said this, but after the C-section, I saw him, and it was like immediate. I can't believe you're mine. Like you're the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. Like those hormones just kicked in right then.
Hmm.
And it was great. And I did struggle a little bit, but I still had like, the I love you so much. I'm like obsessed with you. I think that really carried on throughout my postpartum journey with him. It was just like I was so focused on him. And I did have like definitely some postpartum anxiety a little bit. Like I was terrified that something was going to happen to him,
Mm-hmm.
um, like when he was sleeping. And I think that's normal for a lot of moms, but because I think with I don't know if it's just the way my brain works. I just kind of like obsessively think about things in a way.
Uh-huh.
I was just so scared that something was going to happen. And so even to this day, I'll wake up. Well, before we had Essie, he was still co-sleeping with us. And now he's sleeping in his room with his dad for the time being. So, so I still would wake up and just like make sure he's breathing. I mean, it's just like a something that has stuck with me a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But um and funnily enough, like this postpartum, I don't feel that fear as much. So it's been really great to not have that anxiety.
Good.
Because that can be really scary. You don't get much sleep when you're worried about your child sleeping.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, his postpartum wasn't terrible. Wasn't, anything that I would say I would dread to go through again in a way. This time has been a little bit more scary for me. I think I kind of feel like, maybe I thought it was too good to be true. I had such like a great pregnancy and felt so confident throughout it. And like I I kind of I might have set myself up for a little bit of failure too, if I'm being honest, because I think that I was because I thought, okay, this is really going really good. It can't be this good afterwards. And so I think going, after having Essie, those hormones just kick in and you're just so obsessed with your baby. And then, everything was good for a week. And then we got a really bad stomach bug. I handled it a lot differently than my son and my husband. I got like a really bad fever and up to like 103, which I think is pretty high for an adult.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I just haven't had that high of a fever in so long that I was just like terrified that one, something was going wrong with the afterbirth. So, like the postpartum situation. I thought, okay, well, maybe I have some sort of infection. Like, why am I having this high of a fever if nobody else is? And, I had um, really bad diarrhea from the stomach bug. And
Mm-hmm.
so I was just super depleted. Like, I didn't mention this, but during Essie's birth, I did hemorrhage, which And so I think having all of that, plus getting sick, plus not being able to eat because you don't feel good, plus getting dehydrated, just really shifted a lot of, I don't know if it's just hormones, but it shifted a lot of my thinking too. It put me in this like really negative space. And I've just kind of lingered in that since having her. Once I was done being sick, I was just thought like it was just going to continue. So a fear, like I just was scared. Okay, well, I'm just going to keep feeling bad. Like, I felt like it was just lasted forever. And then I got feeling better and I was like, great, this is great. But then I started feeling, um, having doubt or like not feeling so connected to my kids, at that point. Um, and I just feel like I was having a hard time like connecting with Essie and Harlan. Um, during the day. And I don't know if it's because I was trying to dedicate specific times to each of them instead of just like enjoying them together.
Mm.
I don't really know. I don't know if that's just a hormonal thing or if it's just, I really don't know what causes that, but it really shook me and again put me in a negative headspace because I felt like I wasn't, you know, being the mom that I could be because I couldn't connect with them. Like I didn't feel like I don't know, I just felt disconnected a little bit. And luckily, the past week and a half or so has been a lot better. I've felt maybe 2 weeks. I've started to feel more connected to the kids. Like I look at them and I just, so in love with them. But I'm still dealing with the anxiety part of it. And it's not
Mm-hmm.
like full on panic attacks, but it's enough to just be uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something that I have to work on like every single day.
It's a
And I do,
challenging time.
yeah, yeah, and it definitely is. And I think I'm just like, trying to recognize, okay, this has happened in the past, but you get through it. And, you know, I think now that I've dealt with it so many times recurring in my past, that each time I kind of go through it, I am hopefully what I feel am getting better at recognizing it's happening and then able to cope with it a little better without it getting like worse.
Yeah, that's a good way. And you can kind of feel it coming on a little bit so you can head it off.
Yes.
It's such a challenging time because you're sleep deprived.
Yeah.
You're
Yes.
learning to nurse this child. Because even
Hmm.
if you've nursed, five other children, like in my case, even if you've
Yeah.
nursed five other children, you've never nursed this child before.
Yes.
And so you have that whole aspect as well. And then you have the dynamics of siblings,
Uh-huh.
and you have the dynamics of feeling like you need to be able to give yourself to both children.
Mhm.
And we have it in our head that like we need to be more equal about that, or like one of them's gonna
Yes.
feel like you're you're not spending enough time with
Abandonment
them,
or
or
something.
yeah. And so we have that mom guilt that comes in. And then you add on top of it that you've already dealt with, anxiety in the past, and had, been on meds and had been off of them for a while, and then just trying to figure that out in this
Yeah.
process. Plus you guys got really sick. Like you
Yeah.
guys got some type of bug that was going around at a very bad time. And
Literally the worst time.
the worst. I mean, absolutely the worst time. And it was just that's just everything on top of each other. So not only are we having hormones that are going up and down, we're having fatigue that your body is dealing with from all of that. We're having probably electrolyte imbalances because you guys are also have stomach bugs.
Yes.
Yeah, and then we're dealing with the relationship dynamics of everybody involved. That
Yep.
is a whole lot to go through and to muddle and figure out and process, and then try to come out of it and get yourself in a really good headspace.
Yes, yeah. That's the main thing is just like trying to be positive every single day. Just like even just going in my backyard and just like focusing on an area in my backyard and I just start thinking like just start feeling it almost like almost creating a feeling for what I'm looking at. Does that make any sense?
Yeah,
Like
I think
just
that's wonderful.
like kind of visualize it's like a lot of visualization in a way too, but like creating a feeling for, I don't know. I don't
It's
know.
also
Just
that staying grounded, like we talked about
yes.
before. Like you're going and physically looking at something that brings you joy, and you're
Yes.
kind of, focusing, grounding yourself in that. You're really regulating your body at that time.
Mhm.
And there's lots of techniques that many different people, we just went to a seminar where they taught several different techniques for helping you regulate your body during different times like that, whether it's a visual thing, whether
Mhm.
it's a physical touching yourself or touching something else. Sometimes it's an object,
Yeah.
or whether it's, audio, like you're saying something specific out loud. Like all those things help your body to stay grounded and regulate.
So interesting. Yeah. Yeah, that's one of the main things that I have to do is like go outside and put my feet on the ground, like no shoes,
Mm-hmm.
nothing. Just
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Anytime I take my shoes off and I'm on the bare ground, I literally feel like a little bit of an energy shift. And I think it's because you truly are like at that point grounding
Yes, that's
in
exactly what
the
you're
true
doing.
sense of the word. But yeah, so I use a lot of like visualization and just like this sounds really weird, but I told you I was on medicine and in that feeling that it would bring me like the calm state.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that's very distinct to me because I would go from freaking out to like having that calm state in just a short period of time because the medicine kicks in. And just like honestly, just like remembering how that feels calms me down.
Mm.
And that's really weird. But that it calms me down enough to be in like a normal state of mind. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that I can feel just like calm again, just like, like a normal human being.
Well,
Uh,
that's great that you recognize that in yourself and you know what to do for it.
yeah, I try.
Yeah.
Well, I'm very thankful for you guys. So I feel like y'all are my friends. I like there's been a few times where I've almost wanted to text and then I'm like, nah, that's like weird. Like
No, no, you can
like I just
text.
feel like I could ask y'all whatever I want and like,
Ah,
whatever, like we could just text like friends or
well,
something. And I'm like, no, they
we
probably
get
don't want to
so
be
many
bothered.
texts we get so many texts from moms from who knows how long ago and stuff, and they're asking, "Oh, my 6-month-old has got this going on, and this is, happening, or what would you do with this?" And I'm like, "Well, I can't speak as a midwife to that because in
Yeah.
the state of Texas, I can only speak as a midwife to that to 6 weeks old. But as a mom, let me tell you."
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, so we get texts all the time from moms that who knows, throughout. And we love it. We love it. We get pictures like from mamas who be like, "Look who turned 1,"
Oh,
and
that's so
it's so great
sweet.
because we feel the same way. Like we've become like we've been welcomed into this part of your family, in this intimate
Yes, it's
time
a very
together,
intimate.
and
Yes.
this time of growth and change for your family, and it's been so sweet. And it's always I've said this many times before, but one of the hardest things we do is the 6-week checkup.
Yeah.
Because that 6-week checkup is like, oh, well, this time period is over.
Yeah.
And it's kinda hard, and I remember as a mom myself too, when I would have that 6-week checkup with the midwives, and I'd be like, "Wait, but we're not done, right? Like, we can
I know.
still, like, talk or something, like, I'm not done with this," because especially where you get to, like when you come down to those weekly appointments, shortly before you deliver in the 3rd trimester, and you're just seeing each other all the time and talking to each other, and then all the checkups in the postpartum, and then you're just kinda like, "Oh, and this
Yeah.
is the end cap. We're done here." Like, "No, we're not
Yeah,
done,
'cause
please."
yeah, it is like you guys become, I mean, lots of people don't let people into their that emotional what am intimate of a time in their lives.
Yeah.
Like you guys are in some really intimate and trying times in people's lives, and just like you guys will always be a part of our story. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
It's like something it is like kind of like a friendship that happens, and then yeah, it does like kind of end, and actually I didn't realize it just ends at 6 weeks.
It's
Do we
it's
have
not
like
ending,
a
Harley, it's
8 week
just
checkup or
changing.
something? Like,
It's just changing. It's not I prefer to think of it like we're just transitioning into a different relationship.
yes, yeah,
Because
yeah,
that, straight to client, midwife relationship is kind of, that moment, that relationship there is kinda changed because 'cause we're not needed in that capacity at that
yeah.
moment anymore, and it morphs into a lot of times it morphs into, well, we get a phone call later, "Hey, guess what? We wanna come see
Right.
you again."
Oh, that's
And
so exciting.
yeah, those are great phone calls, but we love it when, like, moms will say, "Hey, we're gonna be around," or, "If you're in this way, will you stop by and say hi to us?"
Yeah.
We'll be in town. Can we come by and say hi and show you the baby and pictures? We love getting pictures
Oh,
from
I
mamas and seeing
bet.
how the babies have grown, and it is bittersweet for us, like, we're so happy that you've got to the point where you are and you guys are doing well, but at the same time, yeah, things change and adjust for us as well, and it's also like, uh, midwives midwifery is a calling. It's not something you just go into just because, "Hey, I think I want to stay up all night long with a mama
No. I
moaning
mean, what
and sweating and getting all kinds of stuff all over me and, being in
yes.
these situations where I have to have some really quick emergency skills and I don't know when I'm gonna sleep again." And, nobody, like, just suddenly says, "Oh, yeah, I think I'm gonna do that."
Sounds great. Yeah. Well, it sounds great whenever you just think about it. But it's
Yeah.
like when you get down to the nitty-gritty, it's like, oh my gosh, this takes a special person. Like it truly does.
It is definitely a calling, and I'm extremely thankful. The Lord has called Jennifer and I to it for sure, and many other midwives. I know so many amazing midwives, and it is we do we do put a lot into our clients, into that relationship. You're not
Well,
just a
it's
number. You're not just,
uh-huh.
an appointment I had today. You're incorporated even sometimes into our families. I when I'm gone to a birth, like I was when I was gone to your birth,
Uh-huh.
my kids, they text, and my husband texts, "Has the baby been born yet?" They
Oh,
wanna know, "Has
that's
the
so
baby been,"
sweet.
they're at home thinking about us too, and then then I usually try to get a little picture or something. So then when I come home, then I can show my children, look, this is what mommy was doing. This is the sweet little baby that was born. And they're always so happy to see that. And they know, okay, that's why mom was gone for 2 days or 4 days or however
Yeah.
long.
It's so
That
cool to be able to share that with your kids too.
Yes. Yeah, it is. It's amazing because it's just, it's part of our life. It's not just a job. It's not a 9 to 5. It's not even a 12-hour shifts, that we go into. When you're a home birth midwife, it's 24/7 and it's incorporated into all of your life.
Yeah.
And it's so obviously our clients get incorporated into our lives and they will
Well,
always be
yeah,
a part of our story as well.
yeah. Wow, that's crazy. Well, and it does show like how much goes into it because just the time that I spent with you guys, and the short what I mean, I saw you guys at 3 times.
Yeah, and
I saw
I
Jennifer like I saw you once, no,
yeah, I was gonna
twice.
say, like, I talked to you on the phone, and then I think I had 2 appointments with you.
Yeah, so like
Um,
3 meetings,
yeah.
and then I maybe had like four with Jennifer.
Mhm,
And like just to feel as connected as I did with you guys, and to still feel like a closeness to y'all in a way is like it just shows how how you guys like work with relationships and
mhm.
people and stuff like that. And so it's really cool.
Well, I appreciate that, like, that's something that I know is really important to us.
I know I'm
Um,
sad that I didn't get the full like 30, 30 how many I had her at 39 weeks. I didn't get the full 39 weeks with you guys.
yeah, but maybe next time.
I know, yeah. Yeah, we're definitely having more, but not anytime soon. But
No, no, not anytime soon for sure. But yeah, we look forward to that. You guys make beautiful babies. And honestly, like it and next time will be a completely different experience as well. I mean, I think one of my philosophies as a stepping into this midwife in training and soon to be quote unquote full-fledged
yeah.
um, is that, every single birth that I go to, I'm going to learn something. There is going to be something
Oh
new that's going
yeah.
to come out. There is going to be something that's going to help sharpen me, grow me as a midwife, and something to really store and put away, into my little, bag of tricks or whatever the
Wow.
case may be, to something that's going to grow me. And I'm really going to learn from that birth. That is my philosophy. And I know Jennifer's as well. Every single birth that we're looking to learn as well and to gain um in that way from it. But we gain in relationships as well. And I feel it's the same way with moms too. Like every single birth, you will learn something new about yourself. And you will grow into something new, this will be the only time you're carrying this child.
Yeah.
And no 2 births are exactly alike at all, and we bring something different to it each time, and this whenever the next time is, whoever knows how many years away that is or whatever, but the next time you'll be able to come into it with this confidence,
Uh-huh.
knowing exactly what you can do, exactly what you're made of, exactly what you're capable of, your body, was made to do. And you're
Yeah.
not going to have any of those doubts about it. You're going to come into it with just a very different viewpoint, a different perspective than you've got to have before.
Oh yeah. 100%. I know I can do it this time.
Mhm.
Whereas last time I was going through everybody else's doubt and, including my own families. Like that's why I didn't want to tell anybody I was in labors because
Mhm.
I didn't want that energy in the universe just yet.
Well, yeah,
You
and
know,
it's
I was like,
you gotta protect that space too. That is a sacred space, that birthing space, and I feel like you absolutely have to protect that space.
yes.
And you did a good job of that.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Tried. Okay.
Well, sometimes it can be a big challenge, but well, my prayer for you is that just this whole experience that I'm so thankful that you really just went after what you wanted. Like you made that hard decision on making the change, even though I could see somebody who dealt with anxiety in the past, so that would be an even bigger mountain to climb, having
Yes.
to make that type of a decision. And you really advocated for yourself
Yeah.
and you went after it. You found what you wanted and you got the birth you wanted. And that is such an amazing, like, hallelujah moment.
I know. It definitely is.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and sharing. It really blesses me to get to hear your journey and where you are right now, and looking forward to the first year of Essie's life for you and what that brings for your family.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for listening. May you be encouraged and strengthened by what you've heard today. Remember, you are dearly loved by your Creator, so be who He created you to be. May you go in peace, friends. Till next time, Shalom.